Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. I feel like I should do a video on how I managed to travel on a budget back in my mid to early 20s, which was a different phase of my life. And a lot of people who are starting to travel or solo travel or even just want to explore the world, they don't always have the biggest budgets just yet because let's say you're just starting out in life, you're just getting a new job, or you just graduated from college, or you're in college, or you just graduated from high school, and whatever it may be, whatever your life situation may be. It's not like everyone who travels the world is filthy rich. Trust me, I clearly was not. I grew up in a really humble lifestyle, and we did not travel the world as a family. Okay, going to the beach was also like a dream of mine that did not happen until I was like, what, I don't even know, a teenager. And it wasn't even like a actual beach. It was like, yeah, it was a beach, but it was like crazy raining, stormy night that I didn't even get to enjoy it. And the odd thing is now I live by the beach. So imagine that, and I've been to almost every beautiful beach in the world that I wanted to go to at least. So I think a lot of it is just like having the will to travel and then being smart about it and saving up for it. Here's a few tips that I followed, and I learned it the hard way, or I learned it myself. I didn't really have someone teaching me these things when I started solo traveling. So I was in my mid to early 20s. My first trip was across Europe. I did a 2.5, almost 3 week backpacking across Europe trip, and I started off in London, and then from London I flew to Athens, and from Athens in Greece I flew to Rome, and then from Rome in Italy I took a train to Cinque Terre, and in Cinque Terre I stayed in one of the 5 towns that's there, Manarola, and from there I took a train to Switzerland, or many trains I should say, and because I had to switch trains a lot, and I went to Interlaken, and Interlaken became my most favorite town in the world at the time, and it still is one of my favorite places in the world because that's where I went paragliding and got over my fear of heights and fell in love with Switzerland. And from Interlaken I took a train to Geneva, and from Geneva I flew back to London because my international round trip ticket was through London. And so all in all, it was a 2.5 week trip, and I probably paid for 2.5 weeks traveling across Europe with my international round trip ticket, probably around $2,000. Keep in mind it was for 2.5 weeks, or I think like 20 days, so I guess almost 3 weeks if you include the travel time internationally. So yeah, you could say 3 weeks. So I spent $2,000 US in 3 weeks, and probably not even full 2K. I would say probably around like $1,800. And most of that was my international ticket, which was probably around 1,000, yeah, from US to London. And then after that I took a lot of discount airlines across Europe, which many backpackers know Europe is the easiest place to backpack. And it's also really easy to navigate. You can get a lot for your dollar, and you can go from country to country as long as you're like smart about it, really easily because of the European Union agreements, and you just have to be careful that make sure your passport is up to date and all of that. So I went to 4 countries in 3 weeks, or almost 3 weeks, for less than $2,000 as my first backpacking across Europe trip. And I was probably 24 or 25 at the time. And I made it happen because I planned meticulously at the time, but I also was really spontaneous and kind of kept some things up in the air based on how I felt, because I really wanted to go with the flow. And I also went on my first big major hike, which was Cinque Terre, which if you've been there, it's a beautiful coastal hike in the mountains of Italy, and I fell in love with hiking there too. So I got over my fear of heights in Italy and Switzerland. I got to embrace the Greek mythology culture in Greece, which I was always a fan of Greek mythology. In high school, I took Greek mythology and I always had A plus. I would be the kid doing extra credit and always acing the pop quizzes because I was such a Greek mythology nerd. And to go to like the Temple of Athena, the Temple of Apollo, to go to Delphi, and I was like, where's the Oracle? I was so excited. I loved being in real life Greek mythology. And then being in Rome, I was having studied the Roman Empire and the culture, like a lot of that came to life for me. And of course, I'm a lover of food, so Italy has one of the best cuisines in the world. Totally enjoyed it. And then being a lover of nature, Switzerland was like a dream come true, especially Interlaken, and then paragliding in the Alps. So I think having a plan beforehand helped me a lot. I was a new grad nurse at the time, and I was also in graduate school to get my master's, and therefore I was on tight budget. So I worked a ton of extra shifts to save up money. So I did lots and lots of overtime, and that's how I managed to save money. And I stayed in hostels or discount hotels. For the most part, it was hostels. I think I stayed in one discount hotel for like £50 a night in London, which was by the airport. So on my way back, I could catch my flight on time since I had a really early morning flight. And that hotel particularly had a airport shuttle, so I wouldn't miss my flight. That's the reason I booked it. But everything else was really like a hostel when I was on my own. So all the hostels I stayed in Europe were probably around 10 to 20 US dollars a night for a female dorm. And two hostels were more expensive, which is still really cheap if you compare it to hotel costs. So that was in Switzerland. Interlaken hostel was probably around 50 francs, and yeah, Geneva was probably around 60 francs, but Geneva is also super expensive. That's where the yuan is. So I managed to really save a lot of money by staying in female dorms. And at that point in time, I really didn't mind just like camping out with complete strangers. I met a ton of new friends. I went on adventures with them spontaneously. I learned so much about world cultures. In fact, the new friends I made in Italy, in Cinque Terre, were the ones that helped me do the big Cinque Terre hike. And it was beautiful. So I loved it. So that's how I saved a lot of money, was by staying in hostels as a young new traveler and backpacker. Granted, my travel style has changed a ton over the years. I don't stay in hostels anymore, and if I do, it's always a private room. But back then, because of my budget, I always stayed in hostels. And then the other way I saved money was I didn't eat out as much. And I know eating out is a part of travel. Of course, you want to taste the local cuisine. You can still taste the local cuisine. You just don't have to spend $100 a day on food every day. So keep in mind, places like Switzerland is super expensive. All right, so I would go to the grocery stores or supermarkets, and I would get food, and then I would prepare it at my hostel kitchen. It wasn't always the tastiest, trust me. It was not the tastiest because I'm not the greatest cook, but I tried. And in fact, I would make friends with like traveling families or people that were good cooks, and they would cook for me, and it worked out well. I enjoyed it. And then I would always eat like street food. I would get other supermarket snacks. I stayed in a lot of hostels that had free breakfast or breakfast buffets included, and then I would just like get all my energy in breakfast. And sometimes I will take like an apple or Nutella with a biscuit or something like that away, and then I would eat it on my hike or something like that. So I saved a lot of money on food by doing that. And my biggest expense was my international round trip ticket. I think I probably spent less than $500 on lodging in the almost 3 weeks across Europe, and I probably spent the rest of the money on like train tickets and transportation, and very minimal money on food. Didn't really shop. It was all about adventure for me. I wasn't there to gather stuff or magnets like a typical tourist. And it was one of the best trips of my life because it was the first time I did a major solo international trip like that. And that I survived. I grew as a person. I fell in love with traveling. I learned so many languages. And I've been to Europe probably like 7 times by now, and I just can't get enough of it because I love it. So diverse, so beautiful. And since then, I've traveled the world to 39 countries, and I always say Switzerland would always be my favorite. And it didn't break the bank because I was a young graduate student and a young nurse who worked full time and overtime while being in grad school, saving lives, and managed to travel and make her dreams come true. So if I can do that, you can too. Just stay safe. And if you have a will, you can make it happen. Don't listen to the people who never walked a day in your shoes and would never do the amazing things that you've done in your life, because it takes guts, it takes intelligence, and it takes bravery. And I built all those qualities through my travels and life experiences. And I was not handed a silver spoon. In fact, I grew my own garden of roses. So I still remember those days where I would stay in a female hostel and I was on the top bunk, and I would like climb down in the middle of the night, trying not to make any noise to wake anyone up. Now I can't do that anymore. But back then, I mean, those memories are just so fond, so precious, at the time of my life, and I loved it. So yeah, remember, discount airlines, trains, buses, walk wherever you can safely. Don't have to eat out at restaurants all the time. You can maybe once in a while to get a taste of the culture, but you can get food from the supermarkets, and you're getting probably better quality food, in fact, and prepare it at your hostel kitchen or your Airbnb, or if your hotel has like a I don't know, like a little mini kitchen. And I also washed my clothes by hand while backpacking back then. I carried a small backpack that probably was like, I don't even know, like, it was tiny. It was so tiny. And I was also tiny at the time. I was literally like a 90-pound woman at the time. So my clothes were super small too, extra small. So I was easily able to fit like 6 pairs of clothes in that little tiny backpack, and I just washed it by hand in the hostels, which almost everyone in my female dorms did. We all washed our clothes by hand back then. And in fact, we would help each other. Like, we would look after our clothes drying on the rack. It was funny. I was staying in a hostel in Manarola in Cinque Terre, and my hostel mates were these 2 girls from New Zealand and another girl from I think she was Chinese, but she was studying in Switzerland, and then she was vacationing in Italy at the time. So we all met up in the hostel. We were in the same dorm, and we became good friends, and we went hiking together and stuff. And we all had washed our clothes, so we took turns hanging them on the window outside, where there's like a little place to hang them. And some of the female clothing fell because it got windy all of a sudden. It was on a hill, because Cinque Terre is like all hilly area. It fell, and there was like a church or something down below. So it was really, really embarrassing, and we were all just like, oh my gosh. So one of the girls went and got the clothes, and after that we were like, okay, let's just hang it on the bunks, bunk beds, and turn the fan on and to keep the window open. So yeah, crazy story, but it was the time of my life. And you just feel like you meet the most, or I felt like I met the most amazing, beautiful souls traveling who vibed like me, and not people necessarily from my hometown, because I never got those experiences with most people from my hometown. But I got them from people I met around the world who were just as adventurous as me. And again, you don't have to break the bank to travel the world. I traveled when I was barely making money, and in fact didn't come from like a super privileged background. So that's what got me into traveling, and it became an addiction, or happy, I should not say addiction, but it became a happy way of coping for me, because I feel like travel is the best education, and I've learned so much more through my world travels than I have through any book I read. And I have multiple degrees, honors degrees. So yeah, I'm very, very grateful I got to see the world and experience it. And I learned how to travel smart at a young age. And that made all the difference, because it allowed me to maximize my experiences for almost little to no money. And there are people who spend $500 a night on one hotel resort, and still complain. And I spent that much on lodging for 3 weeks across Europe, including Switzerland. So you could travel smart and make it happen. Anyway, if you like my travel content, if you want to learn more tips about how to travel for fun and make it affordable, and how to embrace different cultures and to be your best version, I think you would enjoy my content because I post videos from all around the world from my travels. Thanks for watching. Have a great day. Bye.